Hi there. Welcome to the next section. Here we're going to talk about sleep, infant sleep, that elusive infant sleep. As a postpartum doula, it is one of the top two questions I get asked about. The first one is usually about feeding babies, and the second is usually about sleep. Why isn't my baby sleeping? Why does my baby always want to be held? What's going on? How come I can never put them down? Well, in this section, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to address all of that, and we're going to give you some tips and tricks, hopefully, to make it through the first few weeks, if possible. So that's good. Let's do this. In the beginning, your newborns will actually sleep quite a bit. They will actually sleep between 12 and 18 hours in a 24-hour period on average. And that seems like a lot. However, it isn't all at once. While baby was on the inside, they were relying on you to regulate their sleep. Your circadian rhythm and your melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, along with your body's movements, have helped them to sleep during this time. After, however, they don't have their own circadian rhythm and they haven't developed their own melatonin yet. So they don't sleep for long periods of time. After birth, their brains are working in survival mode. For babies, survival is food. This is the main thing. So their sleep patterns will be determined by the length of time it takes to feed, digest, and become hungry again. This means that babies will sleep in increments of 1.5 to 2 hours in the first few weeks of life while your mature milk is coming in and your supply develops. At this time, baby systems are finding their groove. Those systems include respiration, digestion, and movement. Sleep, unfortunately, as a system, is kind of at the bottom of the list. And by the time and anytime baby is developing something new or learning something and their brain is developing, sleep is going to take a hit. So if feeding isn't going well in the beginning, especially, sleep, unfortunately, is going to be affected. Sleeping through the night is defined as 5 hours of continuous sleep, not 8, not 12. And this may not start to happen until your baby is about 4 months. At 4 months, baby will begin to produce their own melatonin. And at 5 to 6 months is when they will begin to form their own circadian rhythm. So if you're going to do any formal sleep training, you should consider waiting until baby is about 5 to 6 months old, as they aren't physiologically capable of sleep training at this until then. And you'd be wasting your money. In the meantime, consistent nightly sleep routines, and after about 4 to 6 weeks, will help lay the groundwork for good sleep in the future. A good sleep routine may look like bath, massage, feed, and sleep, with a snuggle or two in there as well. Newborns have sleep cycles like we do. Their first is REM sleep. REM sleep will occur as baby's falling asleep after feed. They'll be restless, twitching, eye flutters, irregular breathing, sometimes a bit grunty. My daughter was very grunty. They are easily woken up in this cycle, and they'll likely be in it for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. So holding baby for a bit after you feed will help transition to putting them down. Putting them down directly after a feed while they're still in this sort of light sleep, they'll actually wake up fairly quickly. In non-REM sleep or quiet sleep, which they will dip into after a light sleep or REM sleep, baby will have more rhythmic breathing. They'll have very little movement, and they'll be much more still. And this cycle will last approximately 60 minutes. When baby is transitioning from one sleep cycle to the next, in particular after a quiet sleep, you may see them start to twitch and grunt and move like they would in a lighter sleep. If baby is hungry, they will actually wake up. If they're not, they will do this sort of light sleep, twitchy sleep until they've drifted back into a deeper sleep. So I'm going to show you a video now. And in this video, it looks like baby is actually waking up. However, what they're doing is actually cycling through into a lighter sleep. So they've been in a deep sleep and now they're cycling through a light sleep. So have a look at this. All right, so if this baby was under 4 weeks of age, if they were in that 1, 2, 3 week age range, this would indicate to us that baby needed to be fed, that baby was waking up and needed to be fed, mostly because there's several growth spurts that happen in that time period. However, after that 3 week growth spurt, it might not be a bad idea, especially if you know that baby's had a really good feed, that maybe we wait and see, and maybe baby isn't actually waking up to feed. Maybe they're just cycling through into a light sleep and then going to transition into a deep sleep because they're not actually hungry. So I had a client once who around the age of 6 weeks, they were actually a student in one of my classes. And around the age of 5, 6 weeks, they got in contact with me to say that they weren't quite sure why baby was still waking up every 2 hours, that these feeds were really good and and when baby woke up, they didn't actually seem to be that hungry. So she wondered what was going on. So I ended up going to their home and watched a feed, and it was really good feed, lots of swallows. It went on for probably 20 minutes or so. It was a good sleep, and baby was unconscious at that point. So after holding them for about 15 minutes or so, we put baby into their swing, and they stayed there in their swing in the living room, and we sat down and we talked. And we talked about the birth, and we talked about feeding, and we talked about, all sorts of things. And then around about an hour later, baby started doing these kind of kind of grunty, twitchy kind of things. So at that point, the client was going to get up to go and get baby to feed them. See, they're hungry again. And I said, well, let's just wait a second. Let's just wait and see what happens. So we sat there and we watched the baby do these sort of twitchy, grunty kind of things. And after about 20 minutes of that, they fell back into a deeper sleep. So what was happening was, and this was no criticism, and this was no fault of their own. But they were kind of treating, and we all do this, we were kind of treating, a 6-week-old the same way we would treat a 1-week-old. We weren't necessarily following through the, evolution of maybe they aren't actually waking up to feed. So there has to come a point in time where you're like, okay, I know that was a good feed. Let's just see, are they actually going to wake up because they're hungry, or are they just cycling through? Okay, so give that a try and see if you've got a baby that you're pretty sure should be asleep, should be sleeping longer than 2 hours at a time because it was a really good feed, and they're just doing these little twitchy kind of things. Let's see what happens. It's okay to just see what happens. So the sleep routine for the first 3 to 4 weeks is really going to look like baby waking up to feed. Then you're going to unswaddle them, change their diaper. I usually recommend you change the diaper before you feed them, so you're not moving them all around with a full belly. Feed them for however long that takes. Burp them, and then reswaddle them. Now, they could have woken up in that burping reswaddle time, in which case then, if they have woken up, you can put them back on the breast for a minute or so, or a couple minutes, to feed them back to sleep. You can also obviously use a pacifier if you choose to. And then try those 5 S's. So we talked about the 5 S's when we, in the swaddling section and the soothing section of this workshop. So go back to that. Those 5 S's look like shushing, swaying, side lying, swaddle, and suck. Now, look, don't worry that if you're starting to, feed baby to sleep, this is going to be a bad habit. This won't happen until, bad habits don't happen with babies until, maybe 6 months old. Babies' brains aren't functioning that way. Again, babies' brains are working strictly on survival. Their brains cannot manipulate. That isn't sort of the way things work. So baby's just little. They're under a month old, under 6 weeks old. They actually need you. So, if you don't want to feed them to sleep and you want to try a pacifier, no problem. Usually recommend that we wait until after that 3-week growth spurt, 3-week cluster feeding period for pacifiers, but ultimately you can do whatever you like. And this sort of swaddling them, feeding them back to sleep, doing the 5 S's and whatnot, that can take about 20 minutes to complete, at which point baby should, in theory, be in their deeper sleep, into that non-REM sleep. And it'll be easier to put them down for at least an hour or so, at which point then you try and lay down and get some rest if you can. So these are the sleepy time cues. So how to know if baby's tired, if they're sleepy. So you want to try and pay attention and be close to baby in the first few weeks of life so that you can learn what their cues are. Understanding these sleep cues will make waking and going to sleep a lot easier for you. So in the beginning, they're going to be that kind of bored teenager, not really, paying attention to you, staring off blankly, trying to avoid eye contact with you. Ironically, their eyes do get a bit reddish. So for lighter skinned babies, you might notice this. Ready for nap. If you've missed all of this, they're ready for a nap now. If they start yawning, getting a little bit fussy, rubbing their hands into their face, things like that. And of course, if you've missed all that, you might get to the I'm now overtired and you're a bit screwed. They're crying, their body's stiffening, they're squirming, they're not settling down. It's going to take you a little bit of time now to get back to that calm so that they can lie and rest and go to sleep. So pay attention to those sleep cues. And as I say, if you're paying attention to your baby, if you're near them and you're responding to their cues, then this is going to make it a lot easier for you to recognize when it happens. Now, how can we get you more sleep? Well, take naps. I know there's the idea of sleep when the baby sleeps. There's a meme that goes around, says sleep when the baby sleeps, do laundry when the baby does laundry. And I know that's a little bit difficult for some of us to, let things go in the home and, with family and things like that. But do your best to try and take naps if you can. Even just lying down for 30 minutes can be restful. Okay. And that would be lying down without the TV and your phone and your computer and your laptop and any other sort of stuff like that. You need to actually just let go and get some rest. Keeping baby nearby for feeding is going to be helpful. So, especially in the middle of the night, having baby near you to just pick them up and put them on your breast and then put them back, that's less disruption for you. Trying to get some natural light, getting outside. And I know in wintertime, this isn't always the easiest thing to do, but even getting out, for at least a few minutes a day can be very helpful. I know we certainly saw when the pandemic hit that because we weren't getting outside as much as we used to, we did see a lot of people with sleep disturbances. So natural light is beneficial for you and baby. Let's see, asking for help from family and friends. Now, as the pandemic changes and shifts and restrictions, get lifted and whatnot, it's definitely easy to get family and friends if you have the ability to get them to help you out. And that could be watching baby while you get some sleep. That could be doing grocery shopping for you. That could be watching the baby while you have a shower, which can be also restorative. Cooking food for you and bringing food to you so you don't have to worry about things like that. Coming over and doing laundry for you. Those are the bestest of friends and family who will come over and do your laundry for you. Helping baby to adapt to a 24-hour clock. So what does that look like? Well, basically, what we're talking about is making baby part of your routine. So, baby wearing, taking them out with you. I know we're not necessarily, because of the pandemic, we're not necessarily super happy about going out and taking baby with us to places. But again, things are starting to open up, and keeping baby close to you and maintaining 6 feet of distance. And of course, wearing your baby in this case, they're quite protected from you. Reducing that stimulation for them at night. So again, dimming the lights, turning off the TV, turning off the phone, turning off the computers, all of these things. And this can be helpful in creating a bedtime routine for yourself and baby. Um, During those nighttime feeds, if you don't have to turn on a light, don't turn on the light. Some people will use a red light so that they can still sort of see, but it doesn't sort of interfere with baby's sort of brain stimulation. But you are boring at night. Make those nighttime feeds super boring, okay? Exposing baby to natural light patterns as well is extremely helpful. Again, getting baby outside. We know again that being outside and having natural daylight exposed to us helps us to get to sleep better. And trying infant massage as well. So there are definitely massage videos on YouTube and whatnot that you can look at, but it doesn't have to be a full head to toe massage for baby. It can be something as easy as just picking a body part after a bath and doing a nice massage. Now let's talk about the safe sleep guidelines. These are ways to help with baby and having them sleep safely. So back to sleep, when the back to sleep campaign, so babies should be lying on their back to sleep. When the back to sleep campaign came into effect, it actually reduced the incidence of SIDS, which sudden infant death syndrome, which is the death of an infant under the age of 1 year for no known medical reason. When the back to sleep campaign came into effect, it reduced those incidences of SIDS by upwards of 75%, which is huge. Having baby within arm's reach of an adult in the nighttime hours is also beneficial. So that could be a bassinet or a pack and play or a cradle or something beside the feeding parent, which will, again, help respond to those feeding cues, but it will also, it's also safe for baby. In that sleeping area for baby, no blankets, no pillows, no toys, no bumper pads, no nothing. I know it feels mean that there's nothing around them, but that's the safest way to go. A cool temperature in the room where they're sleeping, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius is the recommendation. And that's not hot. So make sure that you're testing baby's temperature at the back of their neck to see whether they're too hot or too cold. If you don't have the ability to sort of regulate your temperature or baby's temperature because of, where you live, then if it's too hot, a nice fan, not blowing on them, but a nice fan to sort of circulate the room temperature, circulate the air in the room can be very helpful as well. And of course, if the room is cold or extra cold because you don't have that sort of ability, then layers, right? Layers for sleeping. No smoking in the home. If somebody in the home sleeps or smokes, then they should be doing it outside. And of course, they shouldn't be handling baby after they've had a cigarette. So washing their hands, changing their clothes, because the toxins that are found on their skin and clothes it's actually called third hand smoke, right? A firm sleeping surface is important. So sometimes you'll see, places for sleep, and I'm talking about nighttime sleep. I'm not talking about naps and things like that where you're there and awake, but nighttime sleep, when you are asleep, things like DockATots and baby positioners and things like that, absolutely not. Okay. They need to be on a flat surface with nothing around them, and making sure that they have nothing around their head or face. And of course, feeding baby at the chest is also a way to help limit or help reduce the incidences of SIDS. The things like head positioners and whatnot to prevent a baby from having flat head syndrome, I highly, 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 highly do not recommend those, because we know that babies that are put on their back to sleep, like this infant in the picture, will actually turn their head automatically to the side. And this is beneficial for if they spit up in the middle of the night and you're asleep, that the spit up will actually just fall out of their mouth and it won't cause them to choke. Baby head positioners prevent babies from turning their head from side to side, which is necessary if a baby spits up in the middle of the night. So please, 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 no head positioners. Try to remember too that your baby has slept under your heart for its entire existence. Being outside and away from you is scary. We all need to feel safe and happy to sleep well. And that means being near you. And sometimes that also means being on you. So the fact that your baby wants to be held to sleep in the first couple of weeks, that's normal because your baby wants to be near you. And while it is incredibly difficult, it is pretty much the only way anybody's going to be getting any sleep. So sleeping in shifts and having one person hold baby while the other person sleeps, you're going to have to do that at least for the first couple of weeks while everything is getting settled and you're starting to find your rhythm. So I hope this was a beneficial section for you. And if you have any questions or concerns in the weeks that follow having your baby, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us on Facebook at Toronto Doula Group. You can find us on Instagram at Toronto Doula Group. You can also email us at support@torontodoulagroup.com. So I hope this was beneficial, and we'll see you in the next section.